Hello everybody. For more than 4 months, Azerbaijani eco-activists, representatives of different civil society organizations have been on the Lachin-Khankandi Road, protesting against the illegal exploitation of Karabakh's natural resources. Their key demand, the monitoring of the mineral deposits located within the zone of the Russian peacekeeping contingent's temporary control, has not yet been achieved. But the protest has had a significant bearing on the situation on the ground. My guest today, Adnan Huseyn, firmly believes that protesters there are more than determined to ensure that Azerbaijan's natural resources are no longer illegally exploited and its ecology is not poisoned. Thank you very much indeed, Adnan. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Orkhan. Thank you for inviting. As you said, I've been participating in the protests from the very first day, from December 12th of last year.
So you've been there from day one,
yes.
And you've been mostly there. Occasionally you've been traveling, you've been living in Shusha, but you've been mostly there. And during your time, you had a chance to converse with journalists from international media and local media. So first of all, before asking you about the objectives of the protest and so on, I want to ask about the reasons underpinning your personal involvement, because my feeling is that 12th of December will go down in our national story as one of the most important dates. And what was going on in your head the day prior to the inception and on the day itself? How did you perceive the criticality of the juncture?
Well, the day prior to the whole event, none of us had any idea of what's coming the next day. December 12th, I remember early in the morning, the usual routine of reading news over your morning coffee. And I saw, it was first on the Telegram channel. The news was not out in media yet, but I don't exactly remember which, but it was a Telegram channel, a local Telegram channel that wrote about a protest that is starting to develop on the Lachin Road. And I knew about the negotiations that were being held prior to December 12th. I think, if I'm not mistaken, December 3rd and December 7th. Yeah. Our ecologists and representatives of NGOs, they've met with the commandment of the Russian peacekeeping forces that are temporarily stationed in Karabakh. And they were negotiating a visit to the sites, to the mineral deposits for to hold the needed monitoring. And as a result of the sides not going through the negotiations, what has been talked about and what has been agreed upon, our ecologists and representatives of NGOs, they, on the spot, they decided that since their legal and legitimate right and what has been negotiated is not being followed, they will start standing their ground and they will be there until they are allowed to visit the mineral deposits. So, knowing the events that followed up to December 12th and reading on the morning of December 12th that actually our ecologists are there and they are claiming that they will not move an inch until they are granted access to the mineral deposits, immediately, of course, I thought that this is a huge deal and they need all the support that they can get. I, due to my line of work, my project, Azerbaijan, we travel across Azerbaijan extensively. We promote tourism in Azerbaijan. We try to help develop tourism in Azerbaijan, promote it as a touristic destination. And we do a lot of projects for the better future of Azerbaijan, and ecology plays a vital part in our project. we've been involved in a number of projects in cleaning the beaches, the riversides, planting trees. And the planting trees part, we've been planting trees on the territory of Karabakh prior to December 12th as well. So I already had the access to liberated territories. So all I had to do is get into my car and just drive to Shusha. And when I got there, it was already evening. It was late evening of December 12th. And it already seemed that something very huge is happening on the ground, because if you watch the footage of the first days of the protest, you will see that we were standing literally face to face with the Russian peacekeeping contingent who are there. And to be honest, they were not really happy with our presence. They were not happy that we are on the territory which is under their control based on the trilateral agreement of November 2020. And there were attempts on their side to push us out of the Lachin Road onto the Victory Road, which is right next to the Lachin Road. But we were able to stand our ground. We were able to show our will that we are not here to back down. We are here to demand what is rightfully ours. We are here to demand it based on the legitimate concerns that we have, not only based on the knowledge of illegal exploitation happening on the territories of Karabakh, but also right after the liberation of our territories, those parts of the territories that came under the control of Azerbaijani forces, they were visited by our ecologists, they were visited by our experts, and we've seen what illegal exploitation of our natural resources leaves behind. Those were the mineral deposits that were being illegally exploited by Armenians for almost 30 years of occupation of those territories. And the damage that was caused, the damage that was left behind, I don't want to underestimate it, but it was very severe. And we could tell that it will be a long-lasting effect, negative effect on the ecology and the environment of Azerbaijan. Besides firsthand seeing the sites on the already liberated territories, Azerbaijan has its own satellites. And with the help of those satellites, we were able to have images of what's happening on the territories that are under temporary control of Russian peacekeeping forces. And we saw that there's still illegal exploitation going on. So there is a whole line of reasons, legitimate reasons, as to why Azerbaijan is concerned about what's going on there. And although the process of exploitation has been halted, but we still do not know the state of those mineral deposits. We have to assess their condition. We have to know what we're facing so that we know how to save what can be saved of the ecology and the environment.
For that to happen, we need to ensure that there's a monitoring, because monitoring would be able to assess the damage and control the results of the damage and do something very tangible about it. So the monitoring demand has not yet been fulfilled, but there have been certain important changes, of course. The instances of the illicit use of the Lachin Road have been minimized. And as you mentioned, the illicit exploitation itself within the then of the Russian peacekeeping contingent has been halted. And what is your sense of the progress that has been achieved so far?
Well, you're completely right that the illegal use, and not only illegal, it was criminal use of misuse actually, of the Lachin Road, because the Lachin Road is there for humanitarian reasons, for humanitarian use, for people, for our citizens of Armenian ethnicity residing on the territory of Karabakh to be able to receive humanitarian goods, to be able to travel to Armenia and from Armenia. And but it's not there for export of our natural resources, which is theft. It's not there for import of weapons, of landmines that will be used against us eventually. It's not there for import of Iranian agents who visit Karabakh to train terrorists to use those weapons that are being in future maybe used against us. So stopping all of that, I think it's a huge and very important progress, and all in all, definitely worth being there.
Yeah, because 10 November trilateral statement clearly mandated that the use of the Lachin Road must be in line with this humanitarian regime. And your presence there, your physical presence there, is absolutely critical in terms of ensuring that actually road is functioning in accordance with this humanitarian regime. And during your time there, you have witnessed and recorded a countless number of instances showing that the vehicles belonging to the Russian peacekeeping contingent and the International Committee of the Red Cross are able to move freely in both directions. And it's very clear that there is no blockade there. But Armenian side still claims about the blockade, about the humanitarian crisis, and there are those across the globe who support their vision. Given the evidence, which is absolutely clearly there, why do you think they still talk about the blockade?
Because if they do not talk about the blockade, they will have to address the actual issue. They will have to admit to illegally exploiting our natural resources. They will have to start talking about what they've done. And the world will be focused on the actual reasons behind this protest. So by spreading misinformation, by manipulating facts, they distract the international community, they distract the international organizations from actually addressing the true core reason behind this protest. It's not within their interest, because talking about it will reveal years long of illegal activity of Armenians. It will reveal destruction of the environment, of the ecology. So of course they choose to focus on the rhetoric of a non-existing blockade. And as you said, the number of videos proving that there is no blockade, it's countless. It's well over 7,000 vehicles that have crossed the road in both directions. On a daily basis, we average around 100 vehicles crossing the road. Dozens of vehicles, huge trucks filled to the brim, that deliver humanitarian supplies. Dozens of fuel tankers that deliver fuel to Lachin-Khankandi. And what we also see on the ground is that what they call a humanitarian catastrophe, a humanitarian crisis, in reality, they receive not only humanitarian supplies such as food, medicine, but even new iPhone 14s are being delivered from Armenia to Karabakh.
The situation there actually has improved slightly for them.
Yeah, I mean, what I like to do is when you open your Instagram, we have to write the name of the location that we want to see. So when you write the name of location and choose places, you can see stories. And as you know, stories, they only appear for 24 hours and then they automatically disappear from your profile. You can see the stories of profiles that are open to the public that have been posted within the past 24 hours. And every evening, I look at what they've posted, and what we see is a completely normal life of people who carry on meeting their friends, going out to restaurants, any kind of food is available for them, from local food to European food to even sushi bars that are functioning completely normally, alcohol, soft drinks, but also I see sometimes some of their local bloggers who do, you know, what's popular to be called now unpacking.
Right.
Unpacking of designer clothes, unpacking of makeup. And they say that I received this box of makeup and there's only one way to receive it, the Lachin Road. So all of this, it shows that the situation is not really what they are trying to make the world believe. And it's a pity that they succeed in doing so, given, again, all the tools that the 21st century gives us to actually verify the situation on the ground. Today, the technology, it allows you to debunk any lie within a matter of seconds just on your phone. You don't have to have, you know, any special equipment for that. Your phone is capable enough to grant you all the necessary information.
It's very interesting that the rhetoric employed by global actors also changed in a way, because initially they were talking about humanitarian crisis, and now they talk about the risk of humanitarian crisis. So you realize that there's been some alteration in the way they articulate what is happening there. And in my understanding, I think when the certain groups in Armenia, when they talk about blockade and they say that the blockade must end, they're effectively saying that the situation must be reverted back to the pre-protest stage, which means that they want this, all of these illicit instances of the use of the Lachin Road. Well, I think that is what they mean about blockade. And I want to specifically ask about, about your Armenian detractors, because I know that you've been attacked on numerous occasions by Armenian social network users. Your Twitter account has been bombarded, and there have been lots of messages of abuse and harassment. How have you been dealing with them?
This is not the first time that this is happening. I remember back in 2020, when during the 44-day war, I was also very active on social media, trying to support the legitimate and rightful war of liberation of our territories, because it's been too long that we've been living with this pain. It's been too long that the international community and the international organizations didn't do much other than issuing resolutions that were just ignored by Armenia. So it was important to let the world know that this is a rightful and our pain that has to be put to an end. And during that time, I've already started facing threats, insults, online bullying, online harassment. So I kind of got used to it, because when you react, they become more aggressive. They feel like they can get under your skin, and the harassment, the bullying, it starts multiplying. But when you just ignore, they fade away. They see that they're wasting their time on you for no reason, and then they move on to attacking and harassing someone else, all the way until they find someone whose skin they do get under. So right now, honestly, I'm just trying to ignore them. It's as if they don't exist.
What was the most preposterous claim you heard?
Oh, there were so many. There were preposterous claims as to the entire Azerbaijan belongs to Armenia, and
Coca-Cola again, I suppose.
the Coca-Cola thing is old.
Okay.
The Coca-Cola thing is very old. It's starting to become older than Coca-Cola itself. The other claims were that Azerbaijanis actually owe their whole existence, culture, traditions, cuisine, and everything to Armenia.
Right.
There were global claims as well, that the whole world owes Armenia everything for everything they've done. There were some very nasty insults, some very disturbing threats. But again, we should not be focusing on that. I am welcoming and trying to look for those Armenians who actually are ready for a dialogue. We don't have to agree,
Yeah.
but at least we can be civil in our communication.
Start a civilized dialogue.
Yes, there are a number of topics that can be discussed, that can at least serve as a means to start to be able to talk. We don't have to talk about politics. We don't have to talk about who's right, who's wrong. I mean, it's clear who's right, but every time talking about it with them,
that's what I want to ask you. So this protest is perfectly peaceful. It has always been very peaceful, and there've been a couple of very interesting examples. I think one Armenian person approached the locality of the protest, asked for help, and was received very kindly. He was given provender, and there was another case. If memory serves me correctly, one Armenian resident of the area was in medical need, and he was transported to Khankandi. And one more thing, which is also very interesting, when the protest started, Ruben Vardanyan was there. We know he was a very toxic and poisonous, divisive figure, and then he was forced to resign from his so-called post within the separatist regime. And many people believe that there is a direct link between the start of the protest and his predicament. So, given all of these things, would you say that this protest, which is ongoing, could contribute to the reintegration of Karabakh Armenians into wider Azerbaijani society? Because the dialogue itself started on the 1st of March, it's after the protest, so one can see the connection between the protest and the process of the reintegration.
I think it all depends, and it's all in their hands, how they play the cards that they've been dealt. As you said, we've already demonstrated on a number of occasions that our presence there is peaceful. We do not hinder any supply of humanitarian goods. We're not there for that. We've greeted the case that you mentioned. An old Armenian man. He got lost because of the weather conditions, if my memory serves me right. He approached us with saying that it was pretty cold back then, the weather conditions.
Was that January or December?
I think it was, I may be mistaken, but I think it was January.
Right.
And yeah, he approached, saying that he's hungry, that he's cold, and he's out of cigarettes. So we greeted him and we provided him with, as a human to human, we provided him with what he needs. We fed him. We made sure that he gets warm. We gave him something to take back with him, some food. We gave him some cigarettes because he seemed to be very worried about running out of cigarettes. And safely, he was escorted back to Karabakh with the Russian peacekeeping forces. And he seemed very happy. He seemed very sincere in thanking us there when he was leaving. He didn't seem to be having any aggression against us or any problems. The same way the case when our medical staff, they gave the needed first aid attention to, there was actually not one, but
a couple of them.
3 or 4 people who needed medical assistance. And then they were delivered to the central hospital of Khankandi in an Azerbaijani ambulance. That was also actually a pretty historic event for an Azerbaijani ambulance. And I've talked to those doctors, I've talked to the medical staff and the driver of the ambulance who delivered the patients to the hospital. And even they said that they did not encounter any hostility or any aggression from Armenians there. It's what happened next in the morning when the diaspora and others picked up on the story became a completely different narrative. And what didn't happen at all was being presented as a fact. But it faded away pretty quickly because they realized that these allegations, they cannot hold any ground because there were no evidence. It was so ridiculous that, the narrative was that the Russian peacekeepers delivered the patients to the hospital.
They denied the involvement of Azerbaijani.
No, first there was no mention.
Right.
First there was no mention of Azerbaijani medical staff delivering. Then when we said that, guys, it was us who delivered, so maybe you should mention that too. First their police said that no vehicle with Azerbaijani registration number entered the city of Khankandi, to which we distributed the photograph of our ambulance standing at the emergency entrance of the hospital with the police standing right next to the vehicle. So all of this back and forth, they stepped back. They didn't go much further with that rhetoric because they saw that, it doesn't hold much ground. But what's really unfortunate is that it seems like the diaspora and the others who support them, they were not happy with the fact that it wasn't our armed forces, but our medical staff who entered Khankandi first. Personally, for me, I think it's very symbolic and very hopeful to actually a peaceful outcome. The medical staff delivering, saving lives. I think this should have been actually something to start building up a more positive narrative, They chose not to do it. Unfortunately, their intentions, they do not align with our intentions of actually building peace and working on building relations between two neighbors.
Well, it's very interesting you mentioned Armenian diaspora, which is very militant and very divisive. And I know that you spent a couple of years in Georgia, in Tbilisi, I think 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. And you had a chance to converse with many Armenians. And in one of your recent interviews, you stated that the most of the hatred that we hear about Azerbaijan is actually coming from the Armenian diaspora, not from the Armenians living in Armenia or Armenian residents of the Karabakh region of Azerbaijan. So diaspora has a special role to play. And Nikol Pashinyan, Armenian Prime Minister currently, is in a relatively difficult position. Would you say that, given that the most of the problem actually stems from the diaspora, and inside Armenia people are more or less in line with the arguments that there must be a peace treaty with Azerbaijan because it's best for Armenia, that Nikol Pashinyan is exaggerating the pressure exerted on him? Would you say that he is deliberately vacillating because he is not interested in peace? Or would you say that he's simply very weak and he can't actually unite a country along this agenda?
It's difficult to say what's really going on the ground, because the rhetoric and what's actually happening, it does not align. So either he's not sincere in his peace rhetoric, or he's not in control of what's happening within his own government. Because the political military circles of Armenia, we see the provocations, we see the hostilities, and then we hear Nikol Pashinyan talking about territorial integrity, recognizing territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, talking about the importance of signing the peace treaty. We see his wife talking about 11,000 deserteers who she presents as a symbol of Armenia not wanting a war with Azerbaijan. So it all paints a very difficult picture to understand of what's really happening, whether it's the huge pressure from the diaspora and from the Karabakh clan, whether it's insincerity, whether it's lack of control within his own government, or a bit of everything. Gives
combination of all this.
Yes, combination of all of this. But there really is no alternative to peace. And one way or another, the peace will be achieved. It's just a matter of time, but definitely not a matter of decades as it used to be before, prior to 2020. Azerbaijan will not allow this situation to prolong for another 20, 30 years. So it's a matter of the next maybe.
So
sometimes.
My last question is going to be about the eco-process again. So we are having this conversation today in Baku, but in a couple of days you are heading to Shusha. And so could you describe for me that very juncture at which you and other eco-protestors will be able to say that, yes, we have achieved what we set out to achieve. So could you describe for me the elements of that juncture when you will be able to say, right, there was a problem, now it has been sorted out?
As soon as we are on the site of the mineral deposits,
right,
and we witness with our own eyes that our ecologists and our experts are on the ground and they are being assisted to hold the needed monitoring without any additional and artificial difficulties and problems being caused, as soon as we see a cooperation in conducting the needed monitoring, that will be the moment that we can say that we've achieved our goal. Our ecologists are on the ground. The process of assessing the overall state of the deposits has begun.
Yeah.
And this is something that we've wanted.
I very much hope that that objective will be achieved sooner than we may think. I wish you all the best, and thank you very much indeed for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure.